Welcome to the third portion of our orientation for Math 251 Calculus Online here at Cañada College. My name is Lapuz. In this portion, we will take a look at WebAssign. So we have our Canvas account, smccd.instructure.com, and once you log in, you click on the tile to get into our course, and here's our course. So our course has a link that says WebAssign, so we click on that and it's going to bring you to the WebAssign page. And I'm gonna take a look at this from the student view, since I am the instructor. From the student view, this should be what you would see in WebAssign. So if you take a look at the left hand side, the current assignments, you'll see that there are lab assignments and there are homework assignments. So that goes on for a while here with I think the due date should be pretty much set according to how your your schedule states it. And it has a personal study plan down in the bottom and some other resources that you might be able to click on. On the right side, you have some class insights. The announcements and communications won't happen here because we'll be using Canvas. We're only going to be using this for the homework, the labs, and the actual textbook. And you can click on this to access the textbook. So let's take a look at a couple of things. Let's first take a look at the textbook. If you click on that, it's going to open up your text. There are some features on the right hand side. You can take a look at the full book. You can ask it to read, speak to you. You can access a dictionary. There's a glossary, and then you can even make your own flashcards. And then you can write notes on the book itself if you want. So I encourage you to explore these things. The flashcards has some limitations in that you can only type things up. You can't insert formulas, or pictures are a little bit tougher to insert. But you can certainly go through the book and highlight things and then bookmark it so you can find your own highlights and notes that you might have taken as you're reading the book. If we take a look at the book, let's open up chapter 2 here, where they talk about limits 2.2. Your book kind of looks like this. So you can ask it to listen, or you can ask it to read it to you. You can take a look at adjusting the text size. You can print pieces of this. You can bookmark your pages, etc. Some of them have clickable links that will allow you to jump around and take a look at these things. So I would ask you to explore to see what this thing has to offer as you're going through the textbook. Alright, let's take a look at your assignments. So there's two types of assignments that come out of this the WebAssign. The first one is a lab type of assignment, and then the other one is a homework type of assignment. So the lab assignments are structured in a way that it walks you through steps. So it's more like a tutorial, and I will have solutions for these things, but it's kind of important for you to go through and walk through the steps. And some of these things you won't be able to jump to the next part of the question until you've answered the first part of the question. So in this example over here, you're asked to find the domain of the function. So when finding the domain, we eliminate x values that cause the denominator to be, let's say, equal to 0, and the x values which create negative values inside the radicals that are even radicals. So we can submit that, and then we can get credit for that. And then so for the given values, inside the radical will be non-negative only when this thing is bigger than or equal to 0. And then you solve for this. You take the 14 and move it to the other side, so it'll be also bigger than or equal to 0. So if you get things, so sometimes when you click on it, you'll see this thing pop up, which means it's asking you to put a symbol. Sometimes when you get things wrong, it'll mark you off wrong, and then you can change your answers to see if it'll work out. So we can see if we can put the correct answer here. So we need a bracket, so we can take a look at sets. So a bracket on the left side and a parentheses, because it goes off to infinity, so parentheses on the right side. So let's take a look at this. So let's take the other brackets out. So this is going to go from 14 to infinity. Now infinity is one of those symbols that I think I need to find here. We can see the symbols that says infinity. So you can click on that and then submit. And then it looks like we got that correct. Step 4, now we want to sketch the graph. So this thing starts with 14 and goes off. It is a function, so it has to pass a vertical line test. So I think it's this one. All right, so I think that's it. Now you've completed and mastered it, and then you can move on to the next one. So these assignments have multiple parts, and it has a step-by-step process that allows you to kind of walk through this with a computer. Some of them have video examples, so if you have no clue of how to start this, you can take a look at the video example, and then you just have to make sure that you have the appropriate plugins, which I don't, but you should be able to install it. Okay, so I encourage you to take some time to do this. This is kind of equivalent, or my way of making sure that you're reading through the material, not just jumping into the problems and guessing some of your answers. And if at any point you're getting stuck on some of these problems, these are examples that are taken pretty much from the book. Maybe some of these things have some of their numbers changed, but you can look at the book in section 1.1, that's the section that we're in, and then take a look at example 5. You'll see something that's very similar to what this is. Alright, so those are the lab assignments. Let's see if we can get out. Let's save the assignment progress and go back to our home page. Let's try that again. So close. Let's go back to the home page, or you can go to My Assignments, and then you'll see the list of your assignments here. So these are the lab assignments. Now the homework assignments are a little bit different. They don't walk you through a step-by-step process. They might have several steps, but they're basically just asking you the question. We could see that some of these things repeat, but most of the assignments that you'll see are going to be assignments where it's not a walkthrough kind of thing. So let's try to do one of these problems. The graph of the function f is given here. State the value of f of 1. So if this is 1 in the x, the 1 in the y, 2 and 3 in the y value, so I think this is going to be a 3. Estimate the value at -1. So this is the x-axis, -1 is over here. So that's a little bit less than -0.5, or a little bit greater than -0.5. So maybe let's put -1/3. So let's do a 0.3. For what values of f of x equal to 1? So here's a couple of values over here where a horizontal line on x or y is equal to 1 is going to give us an x value of 0, and 1, 2, 3, x value of 3. So enter a comma separated list. So 0 is the first number and 3 is the second number. And then estimate the value of x such that f of x is equal to 0. So I want to know where that hits the x-axis. So it looks like it hits the x-axis here on the negative side, and that's a half. Let's try negative 1/2, so that's 0.5. What's the domain? The domain, it looks like it stops here at -1, -2, stops at -2 on the left, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, +4 on the right. So the domain looks like it also doesn't have holes in it like open circles, so let's assume that it's going to be closed. So our set notation will have closed brackets, and it's going to go from what was it again, -2 to +4. And then our range goes from it goes down -1, and it goes as high as 1, 2, 3. So -1 to 3 with the same. So we can use the keyboard here, -1 to 3. And then on what interval is the function increasing? So it increased from these interval would be the x values, so -2 all the way up to +1, and then it decreases after that. So it goes from -2 to +1. And then here we can submit the answer, and then we can see what parts of these we got correct, what parts we got incorrect, and looks like they all have check marks, so that looks good. So if you get something that's not correct, it will tell you that it was not correct, and then it also says that there's some stuff here that gives you some feedback, so we can put in our information. And then try it again. So you don't have an infinite number of submissions. I think you have maybe 100 submissions per problem. So when you're doing homework, you can submit as much as you need to, but you shouldn't submit just to guess. You should actually try to figure out how to do the problem set. So let's see. Enter your answer in interval notation. So you can go on and use the different interval notations. So there's different operations you can include here. Especially, this is especially good for fractions. Special functions, exponential, logarithmic functions. Log with a different base is important. Some different roots. There's symbols that you can use. We have infinity, theta, pi, I, some undefined DNE, and some other things. The relation symbols, the set notation. We're probably not going to be using vectors so much here in this particular course, but there's some vector information here as well. Some trig function. Sometimes you can just type cosine and then it'll identify that as a function, but you can always go here to check out the other functions. And then some Greek letters if we need. You can find pi over here, but you can also find pi in the symbols. But if there's any other Greek letters that we might need to use, we can find it here as well. So that's it. You can do this problem by problem and check your work for each problem, and then you can just submit it. Okay. You can also add some notes to yourselves if you're getting stuck on a problem. What I would suggest you do is keep a notebook where you get to do these homework problems, because these things, I mean, we kind of did this on the computer online, but a lot of these things require some pencil paperwork. So I encourage you to have a notebook with you so you can write up your notes and then your thought processes, and then that would help you when you're working on your exams. Okay, so I hope that helps. That is the rundown for WebAssign. That will have your lab assignments and your homework assignments and the textbook. All right. That's the end of our orientation, and if you have any other questions, you can send me an email. And remember that the email is rlapuz2@my.smccd.edu. Okay, I'll see you online.